Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the town of Waukesha for a town hearing and town meeting at Town Hall, November 10, 2015, beginning at 7 p.m. We'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Is there anybody that would like to volunteer to lead? We have a volunteer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. We've got a quick, short PowerPoint put together for you tonight, explaining the highlights of the budget. A couple of highlights in the budget tonight that the town board would like to present to you is that our budget for this year is flat. There is no increase in the levy in the budget that we have prepared over last year, and that's last year after a nearly 5% decrease and a 25% decrease in the fee we pay for garbage. With no increases in taxes, we have found monies to pay for a 120% increase in road maintenance, that's paving, slag, and crack filling over the 5-year running average. Additionally, we are setting aside $367,000 for future capital expenses. This year, in 2015, we have purchased 2 additional DPW vehicles that will allow us to plow more of our own roads, save us some money while increasing the service that we receive. We are joining with the Village of Big Bend to form our own municipal court. That's going to save, if anybody gets a ticket or some citation, that's going to save you a trip all the way out to North Prairie, shorten the time that we would have to, that we were spending almost a year to wait to get a court date, which just wasn't acceptable. And also will save us some tax dollars once again. The tax levy for 2016 is broken up into 2 categories. We have an operating budget, which is all the normal things, the fire department, public safety, DPW, general government, and our capital budget. The operating budget is $1,218,430, and the capital budget is $367,156. So the total tax levy will equal exactly last year of $1,585,586. The general fund shows a decrease by year's end, a projected decrease of $21,543. That amount is represented by the assets that we have gained, which is 2 plow trucks, an ambulance, a hot box for the DPW so that they can patch roads with hot asphalt rather than cold pack that they used to use, and a hot pressure washer. All of that was purchased with only a $21,000 decrease in the general fund. The revenues for the capital budget are coming $367,156 out of the tax levy and $469,544 from the capital fund, and then a carryover of a $127,393, and that's to purchase the balance of the digital radios for the fire department. And that was an upgrade that was began last year. Is that correct, Chief? The expenditures, general government, $31,700, and this is for the capital budget. Public safety is $487,393. That's made up of $360,000 for a tender for the fire department, as well as the $127,393 for the radios. Highway and transportation is $445,000. That's, again, the paving, crack filling, and slagging. The capital plan, this has been something that's been thought out by the board. We've been working on this for about a year. Supervisor Fisher has taken the lead on that. We've got a 5-year capital plan set forward. So we have a plan and a path that hasn't existed before. We know what we need and we know how to get there. Election equipment has been set aside as $6,700. That's some election equipment that's been mandated that we purchase. Our ordinances have not been codified. It's been talked about for a long time, but a lot of our ordinances don't match what's going on with the state laws, and those need to be brought up to speed, and all of the ordinances that have been passed need to get put together into one place. The tender we spoke about, $360,000, digital radio upgrade of $127,000, roads, and this is specific to paving, of $353,000. The DPW has a aged bucket truck that is probably not going to be able to be certified any longer, and we've set aside $60,000 for that, as well as $32,000 for a new salt shed. That would be here on town property. Where's the money coming from? In 2016, for the operating budget, which we just talked about, $1,220,430 from the levy, $356,529 from intergovernmental revenues, licenses of $196, fines $30,000. That's up $20,000. That's up $10,000 from last year, but we're tracking at over $30,000 for the year, and that's the reason for the increase there. Public charges of $611,300, miscellaneous revenue of $90,050, other finance and other financing is $0. The operating budget expenditures, general government is $500,081. Public safety is $901,267. Public works is $1,049,210, and conservation is $54,339. At this time, I'd like to open it up for questions, comments. Those that wish to speak in favor of the proposed budget should start first, and those that would wish to oppose it would be second, and that's according to the town's ordinances. And feel free. You guys want some more lights on before we start? And if you have not signed in, there's a sign-in sheet in the back on the desk. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, ask your questions. Up at the mic, please, though.
Angie Van Sock, South 51, West 25375 Glendale Road. In your operating budget for 2015, you have increased your potential expenditures by $521,000. I take it that money came out of our general fund?
The money came out of, we had a transfer in from the capital fund as well as the 102 fund
No, this
for
is in your
2015.
This is your budget in effect, so it wouldn't be the capital. This must have been dollars that you spent in addition to that, right? Because your budget in effect over here has your capital transfer of $851,000.
Right, but during the year, they transferred funds from the capital fund into the, did budget amendments into the operating fund.
But that would mean that your budget, in effect, you would have to add your capital budget amount of $851,000 and $521,000. So are you saying that your capital budget was $1.3 million or $1.4 million? It still means the money's coming out of, our savings, no matter what bucket you're putting it into. I just want to understand how much money is coming out of the savings.
Where are you getting the numbers from?
From your notice.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called other financing sources, $521,000.
We had that in.
Usually that means that you've taken money from your savings account basically and used it for operating expenses.
It was on the slide. it made up, I'm sorry, it made up the capital funds. It was transferred into the budget, into revenues, with the capital fund, the Act 102, and committed general funds.
So what did the $521,000, what was it paid? What did it pay?
It paid for ambulance, 2 plow trucks, renovation of the town hall, defibrillators, and the committed funds from 2014 for the sewer project.
Okay. And what is the town's minimum cash position, your fund balances cash-wise that you will not dip below, just to make sure there's always enough cash to operate? Do you have a target number for that?
We did.
Yes.
Anybody know what it is?
Supervisor Fisher?
I'm running a bit on memory, but we did do that formally at a meeting, adopted policy. I want to say, and it's off the top of my head a bit, but approximately 30% of the annual budget would be the minimum maintained in the general fund at any point in
So
time.
about $1,100,000. $1,100,000, or is it the budget in effect amount, which in this year went up from 2.5 to 3.6, or is it 30% of a 2.5?
It would be roughly 30% of the operating budget, I believe is the terms we couched it in. Not the operating and capital budget, but 30% of the operating budget. Loosely, if that was roughly $3 million a year, it'd be $900,000. And
Okay,
that's the policy that we adopted.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And I should back up for one moment and read the notice of hearing. The notice is hereby given that the public hearing on 2016 proposed budget for the town of Waukesha, Wisconsin will be held on Tuesday, November 10th, 2015, beginning at 7 p.m. at the Town Hall, West 250, South 3567 Center Road, Waukesha, Wisconsin. The proposed budget in detail is available for inspection at the clerk's office from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or on the town website at www.townofwaukesha.us. And we have the summary. Who's next? Anybody?
State my name.
No, I
For the
got you,
record?
Angie.
Okay, good. I do have some comments that I could make tonight on discrepancies and issues that I see in the paperwork, but all of that is really not going to make a difference if we don't address some of the bigger issues in the town and the town's future. I am glad that there is a capital budget. I'm somewhat concerned about the $521,000 that was needed in addition to the budget that we approved last year, and the $1 million that you plan to spend next year. At that pace, if that pace is kept up, we won't have the $1 million that we have traditionally had to support future issues, whatever they may be. But the bigger issue that I have, which you have reduced in this year to $50,000. And although I understand in a general scheme, when there's not a lot happening in the town, that is an adequate amount, I think the activities of the city most recently need us to cast a different light on what the town may be facing and needs to be looking at in 2016. The city has made it public that they are planning on going forward and annexing the 13 acres that is the former Lathers property that is now the site of potentially 5 wells. We stopped that process and their permits years ago. It took about $25,000 to do that through Attorney Dean Lang. I don't see any money set aside for that fight. And although you have the opportunity to take money from another area to do it if you choose to later on, you are really sending a message to the city that you're not gearing up for a fight. And I think that is a very dangerous position to be in. I think it's important that the city knows that our town board is willing to fight for our water. And the problem with it is, if you don't address it early on, you have a window. Once they try to get permits again, There is a limited window for you to object. If you don't object during that time frame and start the process, you are forever lost in fighting it. And the advice that we were given a number of years ago was that we should routinely be asking the DNR if any permit requests have come in from the city of Waukesha. My fear is you're not doing that. And if you're not doing that, you're operating blind. And if you're operating blind and they get their permits in place, or they get it to a point where you can't object, once it hits the paper, we're out of luck. Won't be enough money to fight it because you won't have the opportunity. There are limitations in what you can do. So I would encourage you, if you haven't yet, to find out if the city has indeed applied for permits, and that you regularly and routinely, at least once a month was the advice that we were given by council at the time, check with the DNR and get written confirmation that no permits have been applied for, for any new wells in the town of Waukesha, not specifically the Lathers, because the city owns at least 6 other sites in the town of Waukesha. They are also working with the school district to site wells, and they are working with Waukesha County to site wells. The school district owns a lot of land in the town, as does the school district. And if you're not monitoring all the places that the city could potentially put wells, which is what they plan to do, that's a problem. The concern I have is the fact that they've made this public and they've talked about an alternative water supply means they feel, in my opinion, that the Lake Michigan application will not go through, at least not go through in the first go around. Mandates by 2018. That means they have to get water from somewhere. And they're going to be fast tracking this. And the fact that they're making it public puts their application with Lake Michigan at risk because they're not supposed to have an alternative water supply. They expect you to sue. And the last thing I'll say, and I'm going to give a copy of this to the clerk, is the most recent Waukesha Water Utility Report to Wisconsin DNR was issued to them in February of 2015. And this is in all of their reports to the DNR. Above the summary, it says, future water supply, shallow aquifer. The city acquired the property in the town of Waukesha to potentially develop this shallow aquifer groundwater. However, we anticipate litigation over zoning issues related to the property and to the development of the shallow wells. They think you're going to sue because we have traditionally fought for our water. And I urge you to take a look at this, increase the amount of money. Doesn't mean you have to spend it, but at least you're sending a clear message today that you plan to fight because they expect you to. And I think those of us that live here expect you to. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a fundamental difference in attorneys and how they should be used. Our attorneys are well-versed in water issues. They've been working, they did substantial work in the town of Richfield, village of Richfield, with Dr. Chirkauer, who has been retained by the town of Waukesha in the past. Quite frankly, ma'am, you got everybody all ginned up last year about the town of Brookfield and how we needed more money for attorneys. And you were proven absolutely incorrect. And we made it through that with almost no expenditure to the town of Waukesha. And we did win that fight without $400 attorneys from Washington. We believe that we have an adequate amount of representation in dollars for attorneys to satisfy the town needs. Supervisor Fisher?
If I could just make a quick response to the concerns you expressed with regard to the availability, sufficiency of financial resources. The big picture perspective to that, and following up on the question you asked, we have been advised, I don't think there's a hard and fast rule, that for many municipalities or municipal forms of government, that it would be prudent to have somewhere in the range of 15 to 20% of your annual budget or annual operating budget in reserve. I mean, call it a rainy day fund or whatever you would choose to call it. Again, I running a bit on memory, but I believe when the board formally acted on that, I think it was back this past summer, which was one of the 11 things on our list of things to do for responsible financial management and responsible financial management plan. We erred on the higher side, and I think went beyond that, and I think we couched it in terms of approximately 30%. The point that Ms. Van Sock made with regard to the level of capital expenditure, that's a legitimate concern, but it requires a bit of explanation. The capital plan, and the board did adopt a capital plan this summer, and that's different than the capital budget that we're being asked to consider tonight. We've never had a capital budget before. And Clerk Treasurer Nicholas was explaining this year we had to actually do some budget amendments for the capital expenditures. That will be done and gone if we have a capital budget that's approved tonight, which is a 1-year commitment. Over the next 5 years, we have requests in the plan of in excess of $4 million for capital expenditures for equipment, fire department, public works, roads. That's primarily what that's made up of. Easy to do the math on that. That's something that is in the neighborhood of $700,000 to $800,000 per year. The town would not be able to sustain that level of capital expending for many years to come. There was a significant amount of money in the general fund because during recent years, the past 4 or 5 years, the town board has committed to make capital outlays for these capital expenditures, and the reality of is many of those things were not done. They were deferred. Fire department equipment was deferred, so we amassed some of that cash. It's a plan, and that will need to be revisited annually by whoever is sitting on the town board, typically in July or August of each year. That's a living, changing plan. The flip side to that is if we don't continue to defer capital expenditures for road improvements, for road reconstruction, for equipment for the fire department, the public works department, that will one day and sooner rather than later catch up with the town of Waukesha. So I'd invite all of you to look further into it more deeply on that. It's a thoughtful plan. It's a good plan for the town of Waukesha. Thank you.
Come on up.
Betty Paget, South 57 West 22641 Woodside Court, Town of Waukesha. First of all, I wish to thank Brian Fisher for all the work that he has put into this budget. I know that many hours were spent on the capital budget aid. The other thing is, as all of us know, there are going to be at least 3 elections this year. One very large one probably a medium, one maybe a smaller one, and maybe 4 elections. Where in the budget are budgets for poll workers and other things connected with elections? Because I can't find it.
In the poll workers are in the clerk treasurer's office budget.
All right.
So they are part of that budget.
Okay.
The expenses are also in the clerk treasurer's budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes. Sure.
The comment that you made, and the worry that I have is because we've had a lot of dynamics that perhaps the things that I'm sharing are not being taken at a level. If I was somebody that hadn't run against Chairman Merrick or been as passionate about some of these issues, but $50,000 in the legal budget for this year will barely cover what's needed for your day-to-day. You've always run over $50,000. And to make a case that no dollars were needed for the town of Brookfield Win is really disingenuous, because we know that Attorney Riffle used the Washington State paid for as part of his submittal. And even the state said that that work was important in us winning. So work that's done by attorneys is very important. Stan Riffle told me that himself, and I confirmed it with the DOA, that Robert Zeinemann's work was submitted as part of the packet and was part of our win. Now, it's just a matter of having the tools that you need. And $50,000 does not give you the tools you need to fight the city. If you're making a case today, John, that you're not going to fight the city, then $50,000 is adequate. But if that's what you're telling us, then we have to prepare for that, because we're going to need to fight the city if we want to keep our water. And if you guys aren't doing anything about it, that's really scary for everybody. It's a real threat. Thank you.
Once again, we fundamentally disagree, because it's all conjecture and supposition. The city has not applied for any permits. The city is going forward with their plan for a Great Lakes diversion, and they intend on getting their Great Lakes diversion. So to prepare to fight when there is no fight is nonsense.
Why do you believe that they are annexing that property now after owning it since 2012?
They're annexing that property in preparation if they have to do it, but they haven't done anything. And
But-
they don't have any intention of doing anything other than working on their Great Lakes diversion.
That's,
I'm in contact with the city, both the mayor and the general manager of the water utility, to find out how their application is proceeding, and they have a very high level of confidence.
but the rest of the states don't have that same level. And the fact that they are saying that they will drill those wells if the application is either denied or delayed. They are now moving forward if the application is delayed, and it is sure to be delayed if it's not denied. And you don't know, unless you have a document from the DNR where you've checked recently if they've applied for permits, I don't know how you can make a definitive statement to us that they haven't applied. I think we need to do our homework, and we at least need to find that out. You know, John, your house is one of the highest ones in the town of Waukesha. And when we talked to Professor Trickauer, he said it wasn't necessarily the houses close to the lathers that would first be affected. It would be the houses on the hills. So for your own sake, if not for ours, let's make sure that they haven't done any permits and have a system. It doesn't cost anything to get confirmation by email once a month if they have applied for any permits to drill in the town of Waukesha. At least do that. Thank you.
We are watching, in your statements, you have no idea what the other states' confidence are. You simply don't have that information. I'm guaranteeing anybody in this room, you have not talked to the governors of the other Great Lakes states. And secondly, there is no certainty that their application will be denied or delayed. Then those things are all out in the open. Any other questions? If there's none, we can move to close the public hearing. Hearing no objections, we will close the public hearing and move on to the town meeting. Notice was given on Tuesday, November 10th, 2015, immediately following the public hearing on the 2016 proposed budget. A special town meeting of the electors will be called pursuant to section 60.12 sub 1 sub C, Wisconsin statutes, by the town board. I'd like to call the meeting to order and approve with, dispense with the reading of the minutes of the 2014 special town meeting. Is there a motion? Mary Graves?
Yes.
And a second? And a second? I'll second. Bob? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to number 3, adopt the 2015 tax levy to be paid in 2016 pursuant to section 60.10 sub 1 sub A Wisconsin statutes. And that levy will be in the amount of $1,585,586. Is there a motion? Betty was first.
That we accept the budget in that amount.
And a second? The levy to be clear. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to 4, approve the 2016 highway expenditures to exceed $5,000 per road mile pursuant to section 8203, sub 2, sub A of the Wisconsin statutes. Is there a motion?
I so move.
And a second? We got married before you, sorry. Any discussion?
Aye.
Aye.
I just think they did a lousy job of repaving the roads, especially when, no, well, Mala too, but Charles Drive. It's worse than it was before they touched it.
I'll explain it to you after the
Okay,
meeting. It's
okay.
not agendized, so we'll talk about it after the meeting.
Okay.
And opposed? Motion carries. And public comments. Seeing none, a motion for adjournment? Oh, public comments?
Yep, visual is. No, that's okay. I'll put it here. It's for anybody to look at. Okay. Carrie Wolf, S51W25447, Glendale Road, Waukesha, Wisconsin. It has come to our attention that the town's current unenclosed storage ordinance, section 13-2-8 F4, apparently contains an error. Section 13-2-8 F4 disallows trailers with a 1-ton, which is 2,000 pounds, load capacity or greater. Other sections of section 13-2-8 F allow for other storage items significantly physically larger and with larger load capacities. The section limiting unenclosed storage of small trailers makes no sense in the scheme of the balance of the ordinance or common sense. The town board should correct the ordinance to a 3-ton load limit, as it would better mirror other allowed storage in existing ordinance and allow for hundreds of existing trailers owned and stored by town of Waukesha residents. Most enclosed trailers on the market today exceed the 1-ton load capacity. Many people in the town currently have trailers that are exceeding the unrealistic current ordinance limitation. I have examples here of what is allowed under the current. You can see by these examples that limiting small trailers while allowing larger vehicles and equipment makes no sense. Most people currently have and store relatively small trailers on their property and hold a reasonable expectation that they are compliant with ordinances when doing so, especially when they can look around at the larger trailers which are legally allowed. There are many small trailers in the town that are 5x8 single axle trailers which have a payload of 2,050 pounds, which is 50 pounds over our ordinance. Other small trailers, 5x10s, has a payload of 2,100 pounds. Many residents in the town can be negatively affected by the enforcement of this ill-fitting ordinance, as they currently own and store small to medium enclosed trailers. This is a clear indication why this ordinance needs to be changed. Ability to store property on our property is the reason many people choose to live in a community like the town of Waukesha. The town needs to allow residents to live their lives like they currently have and are accustomed to. Many have recreational vehicles or wish to retain the ability to haul their personal belongings. How many of us have moved our college-aged children with an enclosed trailer time after time again? We recommend to the town board that ordinance 13-2-8 F4 be changed and easily resolved to a 3-ton limit from the current 1-ton limit, protecting many, many town residents. And we do have pictures throughout the town of trailers of what is allowed and what is not allowed. And this is what I have examples of here. You can see these fifth wheels, motorhomes, buses, travel trailers, all way above the capacity of what we allow right now. But yet this little trailer is over the payload of what our ordinances allow. And that's why we feel this is a ridiculous miswording in our ordinance. And we would like to make a recommendation to the board that this be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Is there a motion for adjournment? Betty? In a second? Mr. and Mrs. Patchen. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
We have to do, yeah, special board meeting. More.
Mr. Mayor. The road.
Hurry up.
Folks, we have a special board meeting following the regular budget meeting, so don't go away so fast.
On the very last page.
Uh-huh. And welcome once again to the November 10th, 2015 special town board meeting following the public hearing and the town meeting starting at 7 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Begin with the roll call. Present.
Supervisor Durr.
Here.
Supervisor Fisher.
Here.
Supervisor Radke.
Here.
Supervisor Wolf.
Here.
And Madam Clerk, have we met all of the open meetings laws?
Yes, we have.
And discussion and possible action on the 2016 capital budget. Is there a motion?
I will move to approve the Town of Waukesha 2016 capital budget in the amount of $964,093, and I so move.
Wait, and 93 days.
And a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And on to the 2016 town operating budget. Is there a motion?
I will move to approve the Town of Waukesha 2016 operating budget in the amount of $2,504,897, and I so move.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
We need roll call.
And a roll call vote, please?
Chairman Merrick.
Yes.
Supervisor Durr.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Radke.
Aye.
Supervisor Wolf.
Aye.
And motion passes. And a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn?
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you. Now to road.
What time do you have? 7:39?
Whatever.
That was the fastest.
What they do is they take a car, lay it out on the ground, and then bring boilers. After a coil, after a hole,